In the Babylonian Talmud, Megillah 7b, Ad Dila Yada, Rava said a person is obligated to become intoxicated with wine on Purim until that person is so intoxicated that that person does not know how to distinguish between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. Ad Dilo Yada. This chiyuv, this obligation, is something we are told to do on the day of Purim, to drink wine and to bring ourselves to a state of not knowing. In these days leading up to Purim, we will look more closely at the role of Esther, what she went through when she fasted for 3 days and had to sit with uncertainty, with not knowing. Eichacha uchal v'ra'iti, a line in the Megillah that Esther says twice. How can I bear to see? And yet, this is more than just eich, how, she cries out. This is more than eicha, the opening of the book of Lamentations. There is an extra chaf, eichacha. She cries out. How could anyone see into the future, see the consequences, see the demise, and not act? She had to do it very carefully. And because she could see, but did not have the power to act, each step required a very calculated risk and a lot of waiting. What does waiting feel like, especially in a situation where you can see the outcome and want to change it? Where do you feel it in your body? What's the texture of it? Whether you think that bringing yourself to a state of not knowing through wine sounds exciting or terrifying, we actually spend a significant amount of time of our lives in a state of not knowing. Most of the time, being with not knowing is something that we need help to soften around, rather than look for resources to achieve. In Esther 4:16, Esther tells Mordechai that the Jews should fast on her behalf, saying, "Go, assemble all the Jews who live in Shushan and fast in my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maidens will observe the same fast. Then I shall go to the king, though it is contrary to the law, and if I am to perish, I shall perish." I imagine Esther with the power and poise of a queen, sitting, fasting, waiting, perhaps gaining courage, psyching herself up to confront the king. After these 3 days, she invites the king and Haman to a banquet. And then she finally has her moment. In chapter 7, verse 3, she pleads, "If you care for me, your highness, and if it's okay with your highness, give me my soul upon my request and my people upon my behest." Esther names Haman, and the king immediately has him taken away. Esther reflects on her process. Ki eichacha uchal v'ra'iti, v'ra'a asher yimtza et ami, ve'eichacha uchal v'ra'iti be'avdan moladati. For how could I watch the evil that befalls my people, and how could I watch the extermination of my heritage? Though we read this line, Eichacha, toward the end of the story, I imagine Esther saying it to herself much earlier on. How can I sit? How can I sit here when I see what is really happening, what will happen? How can I bear to remain silent? And yet, how can I approach the seat of power with safety? Here are 5 steps we can take when we find ourselves not knowing what to do. Step 1, call out Eichacha. Ask how. Allow something that feels impossible to feel impossible. Step 2, call in a close relative or a friend. Request support. Step 3, ask for community support. You don't have to go through this alone. Step 4, It's okay to wait. Step 5, make your ask carefully and with humility. When we allow ourselves to ask this eternal question, Eichacha, not just Eich, not just Eicha, we bring the wisdom of Esther into our lives. Chag Sameach.